So, a warm welcome to the Philharmoniker.
Thank you.
We're very happy to play with you for the first time together in this hall. We have played together already in the Easter Festival in Baden-Baden, the Elgar Concerto, and today we play Martinu First Cello Concerto. Why? This year, maybe it's not common knowledge, but it is the year of the Czech music. And this program is dedicated to Czech composers only. We play Smetana, we play the Martinu, we play Dvořák. It is interesting that many pieces of our cello repertoire are actually Slavic music, the Dvořák, Shostakovich also, and Martinu. Do you feel a strong connection to this kind of music?
Well, actually, as most of the other cellists, I'm sure not many people plays this concerto. Also, me was the same situation for me when
I didn't know it either.
So many people don't know these pieces, but we know a lot. Maybe the smaller pieces from Martinu for cello, right? And piano, for example, we played a lot. So when I played for the first time this piece, it was actually like 10 years ago, more or less. The first time I played with Andris Nelsons.
Oh,
nice. It was somewhere in a small part, but it was an interesting discovery for me because we did just once. And I think this piece, for one time, it's a little bit complicated. So you need time to come in, but when you come in, you discover a magnificent concerto. I am very surprised about this piece, and I'm loving the piece every time, every day, more and more, because there is a minimalism inside of the piece. At the same time, it's a very lyrical piece. It's a very virtuosic piece, and it's a happy piece. You know, you can hear, of course, the nostalgic of Martinu, but you can also hear something very healthy in a way. Yes, I think this mixture of characters in every two bars changing needs every time a new chip in your head, you know. But I like that. I like this kind of, somehow discovering in the music, you know. You can never be secure for a long phrase, you know. You are already inside, you just enjoy, you just relax. But actually it's good because everybody should be very concentrated, and
which we need to be also. It's a tricky piece.
It's a tricky piece,
but
yes.
I can only agree, it's a fantastic concerto. Many of us have not played it before, as I said, and all this folk music, also the chorales, there's also influence from this sacred music. It is quite a marvelous mixture. It's interesting probably why Martinu had so many influences. I mean, he lived in many places. He started out in Czechoslovakia, then also he was in Paris, he was in the States, also he was American citizen, I suppose. And I wonder, I mean, you have Russian, French parents, if I'm correct? Yeah?
Yes.
So, and you grew up in Argentina. So, what would you say had the most influence on you? Your mother is she Russian?
She's Russian, but she was born in France. That's why I have a French pass.
Yeah.
But actually, I am also Argentinian. Yeah. But from blood, I am Russian and Argentinian. So it's very complicated already in my life. But actually, it's not complicated at all. It's very good for me to have these mixtures.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I feel also very close to the Russian culture, even if I never were there, living there. But when I am there, there is something, you know, inside of the heart of the people, which I understand very well. Something very strong on the same time, but very warm on the same time. And I think this kind of mixture is much more my character than maybe many people think, because I am an open character, that I'm more Argentinian from my character in a way. But I don't think really that I am so much Argentinian, because I left Argentina when I was 9 years old. So I was a child still, you know. Of course, it was an influence in my life, but I came to Europe with 9 years old, so it's a long period I am already living here.
And it was in Argentina when you decided to play the cello?
Oh yes, I started with the Suzuki method.
The Suzuki method, okay.
So actually my problem was to read music.
Okay,
because everything was by
one problem
hearing.
to solve at the beginning, I guess.
Yes.
But why did you choose the cello? Was it just
I played violin for many years, actually. I played violin for 8 years or something like that, and then the first small cello came to Argentina from Japan, and somehow I wanted to play everything what was new, what was possible to have.
So very curious personality already back then.
And of course my brother is violinist, so I wanted to have a bigger instrument. So it was a great opportunity for me. That's why, of course, I chose the cello, but it was also an easier instrument for me. I think physically my hands even if I am not so big, yes, and also something are in the hands. For me, was too small, the violin. Everything like this, you know, I couldn't really play on this violin. So when I got the cello, this was, I don't know, a free room for me, you know.
Well,
yes.
So I suppose also with your brother, you're still working a lot together.
Yes, he plays, of course, modern violin, but also he plays a lot of baroque music. That's why we created also a small group, Gabetta. Exactly.
Yes.
So it's quite new because it's in the last 3 years was born this group. But it's a beautiful ensemble, and the people are really very, very good choose, and they like each other to work together. I think it's very important to have a good ambience, also not only musical, of course, but as a human being. I really work on that. It's very important to have a group which somehow it's like a family, because we travel from one city to another one. It's already difficult for everybody, you know that exactly. So when you're a small group, I think it's very important. Everybody's also tired, and you know, I think it's important to have somehow to be conscious that everyone is part of this ensemble, and we really need them. It's not just me and my brother, we need everyone there. We are just 15 musicians.
It's everybody on board. So then you went to Europe. You had, who would you say at this time in Europe was the biggest influence on you artistically? Who was the teacher at the time? And
especially, actually, I had two very important teachers. One was Ivan Monighetti. I was with him in Basel. He was first in Madrid. I came to Madrid first for 2 years, and then I left Madrid and I came to Basel for the last 8 years. I was 10 years studying with him, and this is a long period, right?
So
but he was much more than a cello teacher for me. He was a real musical father, because he was taking care of which kind of books I am reading, which kind of school I'm doing. No, but for every music I was playing, he was just taking me the literature for it. And he also came with me to Paris to see the museums. When I played the Debussy Sonata for the first time, I was 16. He just was explaining me Monet, for example, which was quite new for me. You know, with 16 years old, you need all these influences from somewhere, from someone. And I think he was such an important personality in my life. Even today, when I play a new piece, I'm playing still for him, and well, we are working also together in Basel, but he's a very important person for me. And then when I finished in Basel, I was still very young. I was 19, so I wanted to continue my studies, and I was very lucky because I came to David Geringas here in Berlin, and it was really fantastic for me and very important to have a teacher like that. He, of course, he's a very famous professor and cellist, and everybody knows that, but for me it was incredible to see how much can a person after 10 years practicing or working with another teacher change my mind. Actually, he didn't change my mind, but he opened my soul and my possibilities, because he actually always says, I will not learn you to play cello.
So the basics he did not want to touch. They were set
actually
with Monighetti, or he said
but
basically everything was...
Because the people already plays when they come to him, actually. The level is very high. So he wanted actually to develop my own personality. And this was an incredible opportunity for me, to have a teacher in front of me which was just really working inside of my own person. What is me? What I want to say with my sound, with my articulation, with my music in general. And I think this was the strongest last years I had. And then, well, then I was finished. I did all my diplomas, so I couldn't continue to study.
Credit Suisse Award was given to you in 2004, I remember, actually, because you may not know, but I have actually played in the orchestra in the Vienna Philharmonic at the time together in Lucerne with Maestro Gergiev, and you played the second Shostakovich cello concerto, and I was very, very impressed. And I think obviously that you now, after 10 years, I can see that you found your own way of doing things and making music, and it's great to see that.
Well, I was very young in this time. I was 22, and it was my first time playing second Shostakovich, and this was, for example, after a year studying here in Berlin with Geringas. And actually, I was really not afraid. I cannot imagine how I did this concert in this moment, because it was the first time, a difficult piece, second Shostakovich.
Absolutely. For orchestra also, for everybody. It was
right,
like
and you should be also very mature with the piece. So
dark music.
Exactly. So I asked him can I do this piece? And he told me, of course, you need to practice a lot, but you will do it. And
so you wanted to do the second concerto?
I wanted to do the second concerto.
First, which would be more
no, it was really my choice. But he was really helping me a lot, emotionally and of course physically with the work of the piece.
Yes.
But it was important to have someone behind you telling you it is possible to do it.
Absolutely.
So we worked for more or less 1 year on this piece, actually. Yeah.
Great. And then afterwards, I still remember the encore, which I've never heard before, the Vasks. I think it's Book, it's called,
yes.
Peter's Vasks. So have you played some more pieces by him? Because
yes,
he's a very interesting composer.
Right. In the middle time, I did a lot of chamber music of him. Also, he composed a lot of pieces with choir, which are also very beautiful. And he composed now a cello concerto for me, which is quite long. It's more or less 35-40 minutes, so it's a very, very long piece.
Massive.
But also singing inside of the piece, so it's a very interesting thing. We recorded just now, but it's still not in the market.
I suppose he also liked your singing better than David Geringer's falsetto voice for the book. So he got inspired for this concerto to write something.
Not so much, because I asked him to write something with the voice, and he called me every day and he told me, I cannot find this in my spirit. It's not there. Somehow it's not there. And after 30 minutes, he told me, I found it.
A good idea.
The moment.
He's a very, it seems to me, a very spiritual composer. I mean, we
Yes.
also played something by him with the 12 cellists here of our orchestra. We have this ensemble, 12 cellists, and we played some things of his very strong music, very spiritual. So basically, you are finding yourself in the line of other cellists like Rostropovich, who have commissioned a lot of new pieces. So now you are getting your own concerto, let's say.
Well, this is, of course, I really wanted to have a piece of him, so I really waited for more or less 2-3 years, which is actually quite a long time, but I really wanted to have a piece from him written for me. So I am so happy that he did it finally, and that also we recorded now, because it was in 2012. So we worked a lot this piece. So I hope when it's coming out, we will have some opportunities to play.
But the process, was it basically that you met up with him also? Were you working a little bit on it?
A lot.
Basically like exchange of, a little bit also an exchange of that you could see what you're doing and what works well for you, or what?
Of course, and he's very open. If you don't like something, or if you think it's not possible for the cello, or it's not the best way, he's always open to change something if you need it. So actually, coming back to Martinu in this aspect, I would like just to say something, because this piece was written for the first time in 1930, actually for Gaspar Casado,
I didn't know.
but nobody knows that, because I don't know, maybe he wasn't so happy about this interpretation. I don't want to say wrong things, but I can imagine that, because after years, after actually 8-9 years, right? And actually it was in Berlin, the Uraufführung, the first concert, in 1931, yes. But then the piece, he composed a lot in the form of concerto grosso, right? So he wrote this piece for chamber orchestra and cello, and somehow he was unhappy, completely unhappy after the first interpretation. So 8 years later, in 1938, he recomposed the orchestral part, and he did for a big orchestra. But in 1955, he did the third version.
So that we are hearing the last version, well, supposedly.
Because he says actually the second version was too heavy from the part of the orchestra. Even in the third version, I think that we should be very careful also about the balance. Right.
We will try. It's a very spiritful work somehow. The instrumentation is quite light. It's a interesting second movement also with the very lyrical lines. And there's of course also the chorale at some point.
In the second movement, it's so beautiful actually. And what I like, he's always making a big mixture between every instrument of the orchestra. All the time you have solos from everywhere, and also because the cello part is not at all like a concerto, you know, like a big solo piece, like Dvorak.
It's a little more concertante.
I think it's much more concertante. In the only moment where you have the real soloist part is in the cadenzas, which I am really asking me if these cadenzas he didn't wrote later, or if he changed something, because also from the character, from the style of the piece, the cadenzas are much more modern in a way. So maybe it was written later, because then in 1938 let's say he re-gives the concerto to Pierre Fournier, and he says he will be the exclusive artist playing this piece.
He gave him exclusivity, to the Archduke of the cello, so to speak. It was a very noble man, very noble cello player.
Right.
This is very interesting. I mean, Martino also, he wrote concertos for the most unorthodox combinations, I suppose. Many concerto grossi. It's very interesting. So, I mean, as a classical artist, we are basically dealing with a repeating repertoire in a way, because, of course, new music is written, but I think compared to other times, let's say 100 years ago, 200 years ago, where it was much more common to play contemporary composers, the music of the time, it is, of course, difficult to make it work with the audience also, because nowadays audience is sometimes a bit afraid what is happening, but we will see. I mean, are you also now discovering new other composers than Martino? Because this is obviously not many people play Martino, and it's great that you're doing this, because also for us it's great to see.
Well, maybe the second concerto is also another opportunity. Of course, we have repertoire. It's right what you say. We have enough repertoire. It's not that we don't have it, but it's right. It's difficult to bring this kind of repertoire in such of big halls like here, and to be sure the people will be there, will be here. So let's say, I think we have two problems. One, as an interpreter, it's important somehow to educate our public, and also to educate. We should
ourselves to get to know new music and not play the 20 concertos, which are.
But it needs time. It needs a lot of work for every piece you learn, and I think this is also a problem of today, that not many people. We are maybe a little bit lazy sometimes, you know, to really work on a piece like if it was the Beethoven concerto or the Brahms concerto, and this takes a lot of time. This is the point, that today everything is going fast and faster. Where we stop. So that's why I think it's very important to understand these two situations, how to find space for yourself, to really learn first the piece yourself like another big concerto, because if you are not convinced, you will not convince the public, right?
No, this is absolutely true.
And maybe, of course, somehow this kind of interviews, but also maybe with the public sometimes, to explain a piece before.
I think this is very necessary, especially for music of nowadays. So I think we have come to the end. I hope you had, also the audience of today had a little bit of an insight into this concerto, and I can only suggest for the audience to be a little bit more brave, because usually when a known artist is coming with a concerto, there is a reason. They're convinced by it. So I think if everybody's a little bit more curious, the curiosity will maybe bring classical music in also for the future. Make sure that it will work out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
Let's enjoy the evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.